Well, I really hate to think about my life without Richie McFarland. I'm not sure where I would be. My parents were great parents, and I'm sure they would have provided for me, but I could have ended up somewhere else in a state school and not gotten the one-on-one care and attention that I needed. And that's what made Richie McFarland so wonderful, because it was in our own community, founded by mothers who were concerned about their children. My name is Amy Dillenbeck, and I'm one of the original students at the school 40 years ago.
My name is Sue Kaplan. I've lived in Exeter for many years, and I am one of the founders of the Richie McFarland Children's Center. And my son was one of the first pupils to be there. When Jim was about a year old, we realized that he would need special education. Well, that was 40 years ago, and there was no place like that for early intervention. So I put an ad in the paper and asked if there were other people in the same situation. And 5 people responded, and those are the first 5 pupils. And then we contacted other people, and it grew a little bit larger. And we decided that if we were going to have such a school, we wanted some typical children too. So we offered free tuition, and we were blessed with 5 typical children. We started out with 15 in the class.
I would say that one of the luckiest days of my life was the day that I read about the Richie McFarland Children's Center in the paper. It was called the Rockingham Children's Center in those days, and it was a dream. It really hadn't quite started yet. And there were a group of women in the Exeter area who either had handicapped children or had had a child who had died at birth from a handicap, or were getting together to start a preschool for handicapped children. I had 2 sons, David and Wayne, and David was in 4th grade and Wayne was 3 years old. And around the 3rd or 4th month of the school, we realized that tuition-wise we weren't doing too well. We needed to have a little bit of funding. So we asked a few mothers in the area if they would be willing to send their child to the Richie McFarland Children's Center to lessen the segregation of the handicap. And so Wayne, being 3 years old, seemed like a perfect choice to do that. He was the same age as Amy Dillenbeck and Richie McFarland and Jimmy Kaplan. And so he started as a student there. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful for all of them.
I remember going there and finger painting, doing a lot of fine motor skills, OT types of things, playing with puppets. Of course, I didn't know it was OT. It was great for me to be with kids who were typical and kids with disabilities, and we were just playing together as a group, having fun and learning, and I always looked forward to going there.
In the beginning, I didn't know any of the other parents, but they answered the ad, and we became lifelong friends. Now, Jane McFarland had Richie. The school is named after Richie because, unfortunately, he did have a fatal disorder and he did die. Another important thing is that we had to have a building, and the Congregational Church had a Sunday school, and they said we could use it during the week. Then we had a toy drive because we didn't have any equipment, and gathered lots of toys and easels and play gym and everything you need. We also contacted a wonderful lady whose name was Jean Tufts. She was actually Secretary of Education in Washington, D.C., but she lived in Exeter. And she told us all the rules and regulations that we'd have to go by.
The facility that the Richie McFarland Children's Center first used was an old house called Bixel House, owned by the Congregational Church. It was a pretty old building, with paint that wasn't quite up to date, and so a group of us got together with pots and pans and spick and span and sponges and started cleaning. Little did I know that I would be washing floors and painting walls and all of the above, all of which was great for me. was perfect. It helped me to integrate into a new community. And I had also lost a son the year before at birth, and might have been a recipient of children's services from Richie if I hadn't, and it gave me the opportunity to heal.
I think it was important to the other parents to have their children start this school at an early age. And at that time, it was at age 2, which was wonderful. Now it's birth to 3, so that's a big difference. As soon as a delay is noticed in a little baby, they can start therapy right in their house. A team will come into their home and work with the parents. The parents are part of the team. And the child will have cognitive stimulation, social stimulation, physical therapy, occupational therapy. They'll learn gross motor things and fine motor things, and speech therapy, which is so important, speech and language. So they, at an early age, will have what they need in these areas, and that will give them a wonderful start.
When I'm asked what I'm most proud of in my life, in my public life, it's the fact that I was involved in the Richie McFarland Children's Center from its infancy. I wasn't one of the original members of the Richie McFarland group. I came in a few months after the heavy lifting was done. But it set the tone for my whole life in Exeter. Up until then, I hadn't volunteered in anything. In fact, I hadn't done very much to give back to my community in any respect. But that got me going, and I'm very proud of that.
I guess I'm the most proud of all the children and how well they did. Never did I ever dream that 40 years later, they would service 500 children a year from 24 different towns. Never did we ever dream that. So there's so many lives that have been touched by this school.
For my parents, I would say that having Richie McFarland was probably a sense of relief, because there was a place where I could go and they knew that I would get the services that I needed as a child with a disability. You know, they were afraid that I wouldn't be able to fit in socially. They didn't know how I would do in school, so Richie McFarland was a good starting point for me, and I got the beginning social skills that I needed, and you know, kind of turned me into the social animal that I am today. So I thank them for that.